It's December, 2024 is coming to an end, and one of your resolutions for 2025 probably has something to do with making more money. So today, I'm going to give you the names of 3 stocks that I think have the opportunity to explode in 2025. We're not going to be talking about the safe, consistent names like Google, Apple, Microsoft, etc. that are likely to perform well. No, we're going to be talking about some less talked about names that I just don't think can be consistent winners. I think could truly blow up and have massive 2025s. Stock number 1 is DraftKings. Now, I want to be fully transparent with you here. I do own shares of DraftKings. I'm looking over at my Fidelity right now. I am up $1,600 in this stock currently. Now, I did begin buying way too early, kind of on this first major dip. Here is where I began buying, but I have continued to have the faith in this thing. I've continued adding to my position throughout these dips along the way so that we're at the point now where I am a little green in this position. This stock is already up over 250% in the last 2 years. Of course, that coming out of the rear end of its pretty spectacular fall from grace after the company went public, which if I remember correctly, this company went public through a special acquisition company rather than IPOing themselves. But the stock has been on a huge run lately, and I believe into 2025, it has the opportunity. I'm not saying it's going to. It has the opportunity to continue this huge bull run. DraftKings is my Starbucks. This is when I get to take advantage of a name like Starbucks now that I am an investor. I graduated high school in 2011. 2011, if you remember, that was like the time when all the jokes were coming about around how there is a Starbucks on every corner in every town. At that point, the stock had already begun rocketing up to $20 a share. People maybe think, oh my gosh, it's chasing whatever, but they were literally everywhere. You couldn't do anything without seeing or hearing about Starbucks. And ever since then, the stock has just continued to explode. Well, can you watch a single sporting event now? Can you really even watch a YouTuber who talks about sports now without there being some sort of DraftKings sponsorship plastered somewhere? I think this is just one of those names that is growing. It's still a undervalued company. It's not a massive company, and they are just freaking everywhere. And I think it's only going to become more and more ingrained in American society is sports betting, and obviously vis-a-vis DraftKings themselves. Of course, a major concern with this chart here is all the immediate hype into immediate huge sell-off. What does that mean? Well, I will reference you to another company with a very similar chart pretty close to their IPO. That is Amazon. Going public in 1997, had a massive hype runoff into a major sell-off before becoming, obviously, Amazon. Am I saying I think DraftKings is going to become Amazon? No, that's not what I'm saying. But both of these companies are going through, or now DraftKings is going through what Amazon did in 2000. They're going through a customer acquisition phase. Do you remember when you could get an Airbnb for $50 a night? Do you remember when your Uber ride cost $7? These are customer acquisition time periods for early stocks in emerging markets. They want to spend money in order to acquire customers before then jacking up their price and focusing on profit and shareholder value. Right now, we're looking at the EBITDA chart of DraftKings. Basically, all the money the company brings in after all the outgoing money for fees, taxes, etc., goes out. This is still negative, and it was decreasing negative for a very long time. What's this, 6-7 quarters in a row? However, you'll notice this is starting to creep up, and while still negative, getting close to turning positive. And I think that's going to be a major catalyst in 2025 for DraftKings. Who knows what the company is going to decide to do, but if they decide to sort of begin transitioning out of this customer acquisition phase and stop basically what they're doing as a sports book. If any of you have ever downloaded a sports book, they're giving away money, right? How many times have you downloaded a sports book and basically been offered a free win? That's because they want you to create an account, get hooked, spend more money with them, right? That's what DraftKings has been going through lately. That's why their EBITDA is down. That's why they're losing money, but that's creeping back up. And I want to click on over to the revenue chart of DraftKings here as well. The revenue has been consistently growing at a very strong rate. So I'm not worried about their ability to make money. They are making money. Just right now, they are spending a lot of it, and I believe they are spending it on good future growth. Stock number 2 is Peloton. You're going to hear that name and you're going to see this chart, and your first thought is going to be, Trey, what the hell? I get it, but I have my ideas. First off, this stock is already up over 200% in the last 2 or 3 months. The market is already starting to notice opportunity with this thing. Peloton was obviously one of the very famous COVID boom and bust stocks. Of course, during lockdown, everybody is buying stationary bikes and treadmills so that they can exercise inside. Going into March of 2020, Peloton was trading in the upper 20s. Now, Peloton has just broken back above 10. It is trading over 50% lower than it was even going into lockdown in 2020. And of course, the company saw a revenue spike during 2020 and a revenue drop coming out of lockdown. But these guys are still making money. They're not just some forgotten company. Everyone hears the name Peloton. I mean, even myself before I started digging into this thing. And you know, who buys Pelotons anymore? But they're still cranking out very heavy revenue. In fact, their most recent quarter saw $2.7 billion in revenue, whereas into March of 2020 being here, they were at $1.4 billion of revenue. So just about double the revenue on this recent quarter than they had going into lockdown. And remember, the price is now 50% or more cheaper now than it was going into lockdown. I just want to showcase as well their gross profit macro chart, actually getting a really nice curl back up over the last 4 or 5 quarters, sort of approaching those levels they were at during lockdown. Their peak revenue quarter, their peak gross profit quarter, just under 1.5 billion. Most recent quarter was 1.25 billion. So that gross profit also starting to tick back up nicely. And I want to point you all to a very similar COVID boom and bust name being Carvana. Of course, once again, Carvana, everyone's in lockdown. No one can get to car dealerships. Everyone's buying their car off Carvana. Stock gets a huge move. Post-lockdown, loses all those gains, sells everything all the way back off. However, here lately, this stock is on a massive, massive recovery. I mean, is this just this year? What year did I just click on? This is January of 2024 to now. This stock is up over 440%. An absolutely huge recovery coming out of a very similar name to Peloton. In looking at Carvana's revenue graph, you will notice a very similar story to the current state of Peloton. Obviously getting a huge run up during lockdown, fading away post-lockdown. However, Carvana, over the last 3 quarters now, first one coming in March of this year, is actually starting to get some upticks in revenue again that Peloton does not yet have, is still waiting on its first revenue gain quarter over quarter since lockdown. In March of this year, which is when Carvana got that first uptick in revenue, this is how their chart looked. On a very decent run already, up a few 100% already in the last few months, before obviously beginning to get that uptick in revenue and then just continuing to sail. I want you to focus on how this Carvana chart looks up and until March. Let's zoom in to just this period. This is how the stock looks going into its first revenue uptick before continuing on that huge run. Does that at all look similar to the current state of the Peloton chart? So how I'm going to be playing Peloton into 2025 is I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on their earnings reports. And if I see that first quarter over quarter revenue uptick, I'm going to get very excited about the name. I'm not going to touch it until that happens, though. If my whole trade thesis is comparing it to the Carvana bounce and seeing the Carvana numbers, that it really began bouncing with that revenue uptick, if Peloton never gets it, because maybe it just never does. Maybe this company does actually just die out, and this whole conversation is for naught. But understanding the comparisons and knowing what to look for is very important. So if I see that revenue uptick, I'm going to be excited about Peloton because I've seen what a very similar name in Carvana has reacted to an uptick like that. My third and final stock that I believe has a chance to explode in 2025 is MicroStrategy. Now, this is of course just a Bitcoin play. And is Bitcoin going to fly in 2025? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Isn't that the beauty of this game? But if the point of this video, once again, is to not just talk about what is likely to be strong in 2025. No, we want to talk about stocks with bullish explosion possibilities. Bitcoin has to be on that list. And I love MicroStrategy for leveraging Bitcoin. What I really like about MicroStrategy is let's take Bitcoin's current bull run. Let's take it from this date here on November 4th. From November 4th to the peak of the MicroStrategy high, the stock went up 147%. If I load up the Bitcoin chart and look at that exact same time frame, this should be November 4th. It is indeed. And we go to Bitcoin's highs, it is up 56%. MicroStrategy is much more volatile than even Bitcoin itself. It provides, at least it has been recently, I'm not saying this is guaranteed to continue or anything like that, but it has provided even more upside potential than Bitcoin itself. Once again, I don't know if Bitcoin's going to be bullish in 2025. I don't know if the overall stock market is going to be bullish in 2025. I don't know if any of these names I just listed are even going to go up. That's not the point of this video, though. The point is what could explode in 2025. And I really like those three names for potential huge bull runs going into the new year. This was fun. I've never really done anything like this, and it'll be real fun to revisit in 12 months and see how my predictions panned out. But hey, if you guys are interested in more kind of real trading rather than just sort of these fun possible explosion guesses that we're doing in today's video, then check out my website, daytradingstrategies.net, linked in the description down below, where I have published over 75 of my own custom-coded studies, strategies, and even trade scanners for a little bit more of, like I said, real practical trading technologies that you can make use of rather than sort of the fun predictions that we're doing today. Once again, daytradingstrategies.net. Click on our codes, get signed up, become a better trader today. If you thought this was fun, if you're going to chuck some of these names on your 2025 watch list, please hit the like button for me. Make sure you're subscribed if you would like to continue learning. With all that being said, I'll catch you all in the next one.